Great, we're live and the connection is excellent. So, hi everyone, welcome to the Foreman community demo. I'm Nofar, I'm an active developer within the Foreman project. Today I have the pleasure of co-hosting this demo alongside with Girisha Soni, another talented member of our Foreman development team. For me, this marks an exciting first time as I share the hosting duties, and also it aligns with our ongoing efforts to enhance the demo experience. With that said, I hope we will have an enjoyable session, and I'm passing the mic to you, Girisha.
Yeah, thanks, Nofar, for the great introduction. So let's get started. So before we get started, this demo is all about showing you the latest updates and answering any questions you might have. So we want to hear from you. To make this as interactive as possible, feel free to ask questions and share your thoughts with us. You can do this in two ways. One is by posting your questions and comments on the IRC at the Foreman, or by using the YouTube chat feature. We'll be monitoring both the channels throughout the demo, so please don't hesitate to speak up. Okay, so have a quick look at the agenda for today's demo. We have 6 topics total. Our host, Nofar, has a topic to share and some Katello and Foreman demos by our developers. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to pass the mic to Nofar for the next slide.
Yeah, thanks, Girisha. So 3 weeks ago, we had the Foreman birthday event hosted by Derek from Netways. I would like to thank Derek one more time for doing a great job hosting this event, and also to all the participants who joined us virtually. If you missed it, you can watch the recording, which is available on our YouTube channel. And I'll make sure to also send the link in the YouTube live chat after my talk. And yeah, that's it for this one. Can move on to my next topic. Great. So actually, let me share my screen for this one. Yeah, let's see. It's visible.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, great. I'm having a small delay because I'm also streaming from my computer. Okay, so for my next topic, I wanted to talk about as a new effort we are doing to enhance the demo sessions, as you might have seen in this post. So starting next month, next demo will be showcasing popular use cases during our demos to provide you with some real-world insights and practical demonstrations. So here's a sneak peek of what's in store. Here you can see, for example, the first topic should be populating inventory through host registrations, and you have the rest of the topics here. Of course, we'll be adding more topics to this list as we go on. And I want to mention that anyone can get involved either by suggesting topics to the demo or even by volunteering to lead a demo. So what you should expect are short demos, about 5 to 10 minutes tops, clear prerequisites and takeaways, practical insights before we dive in, and of course the demos itself. Say that's it. All the details are here in the post, so feel free to check that out. There's a link to this post in the post for this demo today. Yeah, that's it on my side. Thanks.
Thank you, Nofar. Our next topic is by Quinn James regarding the Hammer Katello ACS bulk action additions plus refresh all support. So I'm going to pass the mic to him.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I just have a quick little update today about alternate content sources, bulk actions, additions to Hammer. Let me get this screen share working here. All right. So you guys will have to excuse the errors at the top here. I've been having a couple hammer issues this morning. So I have a hammer box here with 2 alternate content sources, IDs 1 and 3. Recent addition that I made to Hammer is adding bulk action support. This was previously supported through the API, but there was no mechanism for doing this within Hammer itself. As you can see, we've added destroy and refresh, which already existed with the API, as well as refresh all, which is a new API call that will refresh all alternate content sources. So if I run a few refresh commands through here, all it requires is IDs, and I can put those in there and should refresh them. There's error handling, just like with the regular API. And the recent addition was refresh all. And that should refresh every ACS that you have access to edit as a user. That's all for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Quinn. That was really interesting. The next topic is change content source UI improvements by Jeremy.
Jeremy here. Share my window. Today I want to talk to you about some UI improvements to the change content source page. So as we know, when you register a host to Katello, you can either register to the built-in smart proxy on your Foreman server, or you can register to an external smart proxy. And that smart proxy is the one from which your host will get its content. We call that the host's content source.
Jeremy, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah?
Yeah, your audio is not loud enough. It's like you're disappearing from time to time.
Turning off my air conditioner. Can you hear me any better now?
Yeah, no, it's better. Thanks.
That's better. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. So we call it content source. It's the server that your host talks to when you're doing like a yum install or DNF update. And so if you ever need to change your host content source, this is the page that you would go to. And this is actually what it looks like before. And it's actually a 2-step process. So first, we need to change something on the server. We need to change our database in Foreman. And then after that's complete, you need to change configuration on your host. The host subscription manager configuration needs to be updated to talk to the new content source. And so we were having issues with this because it was a bit confusing to users. What people thought this page meant, it was different from what it actually meant. So the flow is that you choose a content source first, and then environment, and then a content view, and you click update. And when you click update, you'll be presented with this banner here. So what this is trying to tell you is that step 1 of this 2-step process is complete, and the server part's done, and you have to go do the thing on the host now to update the subscription manager configuration. But what people thought it meant was that something went wrong when you clicked update. And then to make things worse, they would go check and see that the host content view and lifecycle environment actually did change, so maybe everything was fine. But in reality, the subscription manager configuration had not been updated on the host, so it's still talking to the old content source. So here's the improvements we've made. This is what the page looks like now. The flow is pretty much the same. You select a content source and environment and content, but we've also added some helper text up here that tells you why you might want to change a host content source. We've also added some text down here that's hopefully helpful. And you see 2 buttons here now, run job invocation or update hosts manually. And let's say I want to update hosts manually. When I click this button, 2 things will happen immediately. the server component of the procedure happens right away. So we've already changed the stuff that we need to change on the server, and it shows you these two banners here. Hopefully these are more clear than the previous ones, because the blue one says the configuration is updated on Foreman, and then the yellow one contrasts with that and says, hey, I still have to do this part on the host. And so if I reload that, I can show you the other path. If I want to run the job invocation, just like before, immediately changes the server, but then I am now redirected to the job wizard, where I can configure the host for new content source, and I can just click on the run on hosts and I'm done. So those are the improvements that we've made, and as always, I am available for any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeremy. The next topic we have is Pulp 3.28 upgrade by Ian.
Hey, thanks, Karija. Yeah, hey folks, so it's Ian here, and I just wanted to mention that for Katello 4.10 and above, we are jumping the Pulpcore version from 3.22 up to 3.28. Now, while this jump should mostly for users just include better stability, we'd always appreciate people who help out with testing the Katello ACS to help us catch any bugs that might have popped up from this upgrade. And as well, this Pulpcore 3.28 upgrade and above will help enable us to start bringing newer features potentially into Katello over time. While we don't currently have a plan for how we could use this, the new Pulpcore enables other plugins to have what you'd call a hidden distribution, so that the distributed contents of repositories you have synced isn't generally browsable, which could help with security. And there are other like content type supports, like for example, the newer Pulp container is now supporting having container contents be served as flat packs, which is kind of interesting. So anyway, be looking forward to that. And then I have another demo. I think, Garija, I can just switch right into that. Yeah, thanks for changing the page there. I'm gonna share my screen really quick. One second. Yeah. Here, you can go on to the next demo. My my presentation button is grayed out for some reason. I'll just rejoin the meeting and it should fix it, but I can go later.
Okay, no problem with that. The next topic we have is component CV UI updates and publish needed updates, filter last effective repo deletion by Samir.
All right, thank you, Girita. Let me share my screen. All right, sorry. All right, today I have a few things to demo. The first thing I want to demo is around composite content views. So if I go back to my content view screen, so you'll see I have 7 content views here and 2 composite content views. So composite content views are basically a bucket where you put in component content views if you have multiple of them. And the UI looks a bit different, as in you can add content views to this. So in a regular content view, you add repository. In a composite, you add content views. So we have made some improvements to the edition modules here. So let me go through that. So the first thing we have done is added the publish date next to versions. So earlier it used to be just the version number. Now you can see when that version was actually published. So it makes it hopefully easier to select which version you wanted to use. There's also description which has been added. So if you had a description for your version, you will be able to see it here. Another thing here is, let me maybe do this. There's also search functionality on this selection text box, so you can actually type whatever you want to add out here. And let me do this. You also have the option to update this component CV always to the latest version. So what that does is anytime this content view is published, so let's say you create a version 7, the composite content, next time it's published, it will automatically upgrade its own child content view version to 7. It will fetch content from there. So once you select that, the version selection will gray out. And let's not add it from here because I also want to show the similar interface for single ad. So that was bulk edition. You can also select individual content views to add. It's a similar interface, shows the publication date, description if you had any, and you can also set it to latest version here. Once you have done that, you get access to this edit module, and it's also the same interface. All right, let me remove this because I need this content view. All right, so that was one part of the demo. The other part I wanted to demo was, let me go to a different repository here. And let's pick this. So in this Yum repository here, I have set the complete mirroring policy. What this means is that it tells Pulp to actually download the metadata from upstream instead of calculating it locally in Pulp. So also we have another action, which is republish repository metadata. What this tells Pulp to do is to regenerate metadata locally. So we have disabled this action for complete mirroring here. So this was done in the 4.9 timeframe, the disabling of that action because it's contradictory. So on the UI, what you can do is set mirroring policy to content only. And what that lets you do is you can now republish metadata locally because now you are not asking the repo to mirror the upstream metadata. However, we did get some feedback as to use cases where it might be required to republish the metadata locally, even on complete mirroring repos. And since we do want to discourage that, we still haven't enabled this action for complete mirroring. We don't want to make it easy. But we did go ahead and add a force flag. So let's see. So here I'm trying to republish the metadata for that particular repository with ID 1. If you just try to republish, you'll get an error, which should tell you what's going on. So we tell the user that this is a risky operation on complete mirroring repositories. And the best option is to change the mirroring policy and try again. If you don't want to change the mirroring policy, there's also the false parameter that's here. So if you pass false as true, this will let you go ahead and republish the metadata regardless of the mirroring policy. You should use this with caution, and we have messages to let users know. And this is also available on content views. So similarly here, if I go to the version, this version has the same repository. And similarly here, this action will be disabled on the content view version for that repository. So you cannot republish repository metadata here, but you can still do it from Hammer. We do provide that option now. Okay. Next up, I wanted to show something around the new flag that we have added, which is called needs publish, which tells the user if your content view needs publishing. So one change here is we were not tracking solve dependencies on the content view. So what that meant was basically if you checked solve dependencies or turned it off, your version would not show you that you needed to publish again, because new content could be added if you turn solve dependencies on. So now if you do it, you'll see this update needed flag, and you can go ahead and publish your version as always. There's another corner case that we figured out, which is if you were syncing your repository, which was part of a content view, and it failed to index content. And by indexing, that means because Katello uses Pulp in the backend for repository management, you were able to sync successfully to Pulp. Pulp was able to download all the data that it needs. It was able to create repositories, etc. But when Katello went to fetch all of that data back to be able to show in Katello, it failed. So what that would mean is Pulp has everything set up correctly, but Katello does not. In that case, the recommended way is to go and run a complete sync, because optimized sync would trigger some of our optimizations, and it would check Pulp, and it will say that no changes are necessary. So it will actually skip the sync and not re-index the data. So if you wanted to go about it the right way, you could run a complete sync, and that would trigger a re-index as well. But if you didn't want to run a complete sync, there's another option, which is generally used by support or someone who wants to get into console. So the other option is to run index content specifically on this repository. So how you do that is like this. So you run this index content method. You'll see it makes all these API calls, gets data from Pulp, and puts it in Katello. So I ran an index on this repository, which is part of this content view here. And once I do that, the content view will again notify users that some updates are available because you just force re-indexed your repository. All right. So that was one. And the last part I want to demo is one change here. So on this content view, for example, I have a filter, which is test. Let me go with that data. And here you have the option to have this filter apply to all repositories in this content view, or you can select to apply this filter on a subset of repositories. So you can select all the available repositories from here. So for example, I have this filter which includes this package Cheetah from this repository only. And now what used to happen is if I were to delete this repository, so let me go back to this. If I were to delete this repository, which is the only affected repo in a filter, what would happen is it would go away from here, and this would automatically set to apply to all repositories in the CV. And users did not get a notification that such a change happened. So now their filter would suddenly start applying to all of the repos in the content view. So if they were using any wildcards, etc., it would just mess up their content. So what we have done now is if you're deleting a repository, we show you some details. So this is what we had, which we added like fairly recently. So because when you delete a repository, it also needs to get deleted from all of your content view versions. So we tell the user that these are the content views that include this repository, and this repository will also get deleted from these content views and these specific versions. So users have to confirm that. And then there's a new section which lists the filters for which this repository was the last affected repository. And then they have two options. One is to delete the filter so that it doesn't apply to future publishers at all. Or what used to happen earlier is also an option that you can start, you can make this filter apply to all repositories in the content tree. So it won't apply just to this deleted repository anymore. You can go ahead and do that. So I think I selected delete this repository. Hopefully that action succeeded. So because I selected the option to delete this filter, it went ahead and deleted it. So it won't show me that filter anymore. Now I have no filters here. All right, and one last small thing. So for Red Hat repositories, users have never been able to delete packages because we do not allow that in the backend. However, on the front end, we still had this button, which is remove content. So now we have added a help text here, which gives them an early warning. So you cannot actually, users cannot get in that situation where they try to delete content from Red Hat repositories. So this button is grayed out and you'll have a reason why you cannot delete. Okay, and that was all I had. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Samir. And Ian, would you like to present the rest of your topic now?
Yes, I will. Thank you again. Let me share my screen. Hopefully it works this time. Trying to share my screen crashed my entire browser. So I will just say what the change is. It's pretty small. So in Hammer, you're able to run a command to synchronize your repositories. You can also add a flag to that command that says -- validate contents. And that, instead of running a normal repository sync, will tell Pulp to try to fix the repository. It'll check for any corrupt content units, etc. And if it hits any, it will attempt to re-download them. Now, in the past, in Hammer, it was only allowed for Debian and Yum repositories. You could do UI, but it had a strange blockage in Hammer. So we finally fixed that. And now you can run the validate contents on any repository type, be it file or container or Python, etc. So if you use Hammer, hopefully that'll be helpful. And Jeremy's asking, is the validate contents option the same as complete sync in the UI? No, so complete sync, all that does is it disables the optimization in Pulp, so Pulp will still perform an entire sync. The validate contents actually under the hood in Pulp isn't even a synchronize option. It's a separate repair option. So that won't actually sync your repository. That will only check the contents. And I believe it just checks the content, like the checksums of the packages to make sure that they match what's expected. And if it doesn't match, it'll mark it as corrupt and re-download it. I'm sure that's a simplification. But anyway, so yeah, they are separate actions. And so yeah, that's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Ian. That was our last topic. So